This is a speech about Manifest Destiny by John O'Sullivan. So let's go ahead and read this. We must onward to the fulfillment of our mission, to the entire development of the principle of our organization: freedom of conscience, freedom of person, freedom of trade and business pursuits, universality of freedom and equality. This is our high destiny, and in nature's eternal, inevitable decree of cause and effect, we must accomplish it. All this will be our future history to establish on earth the moral dignity and salvation of man, the immutable truth and beneficence of God. Who then can doubt that our country is destined to be the great nation of futurity? So, again, this is about Manifest Destiny. So, the big thing that I always keep in mind with Manifest Destiny is this is really about the concept in America that it is God's will that the United States take over the continent, pretty much. It isn't just a, hey, this is great for our economy. This is great for having population booms and stuff like that. It is God's will that we do this, and nothing can stop us. And so that's an important concept to keep in mind as we're going through this. All right, so for this one, the first question is, what consequences did Manifest Destiny have in the mid 19th century? First one, it brought democracy to the entire world. Since the entire world still does not have democracy, I'm going to say in the mid 19th century, there was also not democracy in the entire world. So, again, time periods, extreme answers, all of these things are really crucial to our understanding of these individual questions. It led to the passage of the Bill of Rights. So this is another one. Time period is wrong. We're talking mid 19th century. So this is 1850s ish. So it's a little bit pre Civil War. Bill of Rights was part of the initial founding of the United States with the Constitution. So that's also going to be a no for me. It led to conflict with Mexico. So Manifest Destiny here, if we're trying to take over the entire continent, we're going westward. That is all under Mexican control at this time period. So leading to conflict with Mexico does seem like a solid answer here. It led to religious conflict between Protestants and Catholics. This is always a fun answer. I love these answers where they are true. There is a lot of religious conflict between Protestants and Catholics. As we continue to go westward, we're getting to more Mexico or formerly Spanish controlled areas, which are going to be predominantly Catholic. And so it feels like, oh, yeah, these are connected. But it is Manifest Destiny of us pushing westward has no impact on Protestantism and Catholicism, or even the rates of Protestantism and Catholicism. We do sometimes get religious groups moving specifically west to try to avoid persecution, but it led to conflict with Mexico. We definitely had a war or two with Mexico, so that's going to be a much more important aspect here. So on this one, I would go with C. That is the most direct consequence that Manifest Destiny would have during this time period. Next question. What impact did Manifest Destiny have on the debate about slavery? So this is another one that's important to keep in mind, because here with Manifest Destiny, as the previous question kind of hinted at, this is mid 19th century. So call it 1840s, 1850s, 1860s. If we think about that time period, it gives us a little bit clue here. 1860s is the Civil War. This is leading up to the Civil War. It probably has something to do with slavery. So if we look at A, none. Manifest Destiny did not address the rights of slaves. This one, it's somewhere between a squiggle and an X for me. Not a big fan of this. It's too extreme of an answer. It did not address the rights of slaves at all. Not my favorite answer. B, Manifest Destiny urged slave owners to liberate their slaves and convert them to Christianity. We do get a lot of this, God's will as part of Manifest Destiny. So there is definitely a big impact of Christianity in general. However, the US mostly converted the slaves to Christianity without liberating them. So B is not a great answer. It isn't necessary in the slightest to liberate your slaves to convert them to Christianity. Also, abolition, while it's growing in popularity, it definitely isn't huge enough to be as tied directly with Manifest Destiny. C, Manifest Destiny urged slaves to return to Africa because they were not citizens. two issues with this. So one, we do get the return to Africa movement at various times in American history, where they're trying to send slaves or former slaves back to Africa. This is not one of those time periods. The South would not have been okay with returning slaves to Africa because they were not citizens, because the entire point of having them as slaves was that they were not citizens, and so they did not have full rights. That was part of the reason why the South reaped economic benefits on their backs. So C doesn't make a whole lot of sense on this one either. Manifest Destiny is mostly about gaining extra amounts of land. That's one of the biggest parts here. Yes, it has some to do with converting particularly Native American tribes to Christianity, but mostly it's let's go get a bunch of land and make it all civilized and Christian. D, Manifest Destiny reignited concern about the status of slavery in Western territories. This one is a good answer. As we expand westward, we're gaining more territories. That means eventually those territories will probably become states. And one of the things that there was kind of this very tenuous situation pre-Civil War was the number of slave and the number of free states. So as we expand westward, one of the questions that came to be was whether or not states that entered the Union, the new states at least, whether they would be free or slave states. This is where, the Missouri Compromise comes into play. And so D is quite a good answer here, because this is part of the reason why the slavery debate came to a head, was the new states coming into the Union as a result of Manifest Destiny and us pushing west. The big tips and tricks that I have for you with the APUSH test is to keep in mind the timeline. The timeline is crucial for all of the AP history tests, but particularly the APUSH test. If you can remember, oh yeah, Powhatan, that's early 1600s. If you can remember King Philip's War is later than that. If you get a date on one of those passages, that's enough to give you at least some insight into what questions are wrong. Same thing we saw where one of the answers had to do with the Trail of Tears, and the Trail of Tears didn't happen for another 100 years. Cool, that answer's wrong. Timeline is crucial. So it's really worth building a timeline both in your head and often actually creating a on paper timeline to help you reference things as you're studying. Another one is process of elimination. So personally, I use the check mark, squiggle, question mark, and X method. So check mark is, this is exactly what I thought the answer would be. Squiggle is, I'm unsure. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm definitely not getting rid of it. Question mark, I have no idea what this answer is talking about. And X is, I'm getting rid of this. This doesn't match at all. The two most important ones for me are squiggle and question mark. I don't want to pick an answer if I'm on the fence about it. I also don't want to get rid of it though. Even more important, if I don't know what something is, I neither want to pick it nor get rid of it until I've dealt with every other answer choice. So again, check mark, squiggle, question mark, X. The last one is watch out for extremes. It has nothing to do with this at all, is a really hard answer choice to pick because most things in history are at least somewhat intertwined. So saying that it has absolutely no impact, saying that it affected all people or no people, any extreme statement is enough to put me at least a squiggle, if not an X. All right. Well, it was great having you guys. Good luck on your AP test. And yeah,